So hi, everybody. It's nice to see you. Well, not see you, see all of your icons. Next week, I'm looking forward to actually seeing you. In really large groups, it's easier if we have our mic and our cameras off. But we're looking forward to getting back to science. This is the IB Sciences meeting, so I'll be talking a little bit about IB Sciences in general, and then if you have specific questions, I'll do my best to be able to answer those. If you're in another science class, then there are other science sessions going on right now, and if you couldn't find the information for that, if you put something in the chat, we can get you into the right place. Okay, so let me go back to presenting. Okay, so we are offering 3 IB Sciences this year. So we have IB Biology Year 1, which is being offered first or second quarter. So some of you might have that class right now, and some of you maybe came to this session because you know you have it later. That'll be offered in second quarter as well. IB Biology Year 2 is being offered in first quarter, and then our brand new IB Science, Marine Science, is offered second quarter this year. And so your IB teachers, Ms. Lang is doing Year 1, all the Year 1 classes this year. I am teaching the Year 2 class this year, and then Ms. Benson is our newest science teacher, and she's teaching physics and the IB Marine Science class next semester. So what should you expect in your IB Science classes? Well, in our synchronous learning portion, which is the 2 60-minute sessions that we have together, that's where we're going to be doing whole class discussions. That's really what that session lends itself well to. It's a chance for us to actually get together and be able to talk about things, which is something we couldn't do at the end of last year. And then we're also going to be utilizing that for breakout groups, for discussions, as well as activities. Maybe we will, show you some sort of a demo and then send you off in breakout groups to talk about it. Or maybe the night before you did a virtual lab and you're going to come back and you're going to discuss it with your groups and then share out with the class. And so that's really something we can do synchronously. So like I said, demos is an example of something that we're going to be working on. So you get to see some of the lab setups. Unfortunately, there's not a ton of labs that we can do from home, but we're going to do our best to be able to show you and experience lab experiences the best we can virtually. And then, of course, question and answers. So maybe you didn't understand something from the time before, you want something explained again. All of that is something that we're going to be doing in our synchronous sessions. Okay. In our asynchronous learning sessions, that's where we're going to be doing stuff that you wouldn't necessarily be spending a lot of time during our in-person time doing, but that you have time outside of class to do. And I like to think of asynchronous not like homework, because it's not the same as it is in a normal year where you have, your 2 or 3 class periods that are an hour and a half long every week. And then we give you some work to do at home, which is sort of finishing up or doing a lab report or something like that. In this case, the asynchronous learning time is really classroom learning time only on your own. So we're setting things up for you to be able to do on your own, but that would potentially be things we would have done in class had we had that kind of time. But because we're in this new situation, we're doing them at home. So things like virtual labs. Maybe there's a website with an interactive lab for you. Maybe we've recorded labs and you're going to collect data that way and analyze it, that kind of thing. This is where you'll probably have most of your sort of information getting. So video lectures with questions, maybe using like an Edpuzzle that several of us used last year, rather than spending this short synchronous time together, like listening to me talk about something. We want you to talk about stuff together, and we want to have whole class discussions. So that's really where asynchronous learning is going to help out, where you can get that information and then we come back and we talk about it and you say like, hey, this part I didn't get, can you explain that again? So that's where that's going to be really useful. Other types of interactive activities, both online website kind of interactives, as well as maybe Google Slides or like Jamboard or something like that. Readings, might have you do some readings outside of class, and then of course practice. So there's a lot of information in an IB science class. You're going to need to practice it. And so that's sort of your asynchronous outside of class time is for practice. Is the course pass fail like last semester? No, you will earn letter grades this year. So last semester was its own special. We're just trying to figure out how to get through with no notice at all through to the end of the year. This year is different. We've been setting up for this all summer long. We are planning for, more robust learning. And so you are getting letter grades this year. So it's important we're taking attendance. It's important that you are engaged and you are doing the work. Maybe different than what you've had in the past is that grades are primarily based on summative assessments. So this comes from best practices as well as from the Oregon Department of Education, that our grades should be based on summative assessments, tests, quizzes, projects, that's really showing, do you understand what you're supposed to understand about this topic? And that's maybe a little different where grades used to be maybe more heavily weighted on things like classwork and stuff. That's not going to be the case this year. The assessments are all going to be based on IB standards. So for science, IB lays out, here are the things that you should learn in each of these different topic areas, and that's what we're going to be basing all of your assessments on. And that's really what gets you ready for taking the IB test anyway. Can you earn college credit? Maybe, yeah, for a lot of cases you can, but it depends on your college. So that's sort of a college by college basis. The way that you would get college credit is that you would take the IB exam in May. So if you're taking year 2 bio, you can take the IB bio exam. And if you're taking marine science this year, you can take the marine science exam. If you score well enough, your college may grant you credit. In Oregon, and this is a unique case in Oregon, it's actually in law, that public colleges and universities have to give credit for a score of 4 or above in any IB class. So that could be a standard level class or a high level class. So any Oregon public college or university 4 or above, which 4 is passing, you will get college credit. And that college credit isn't just a generic credit. It's a credit related to the class that you are taking. So that's really awesome. Most other colleges and universities, including private colleges and public colleges in other states, give credits for 5 and above. And often it's for high level, not always for standard level. There is no direct college credit for just taking the course. I know in some of your IB classes, you can get credit through like CCC as well as if you take the exam. That's not the case for the sciences. So the sciences, if you want credit, you would have to sign up for the exam. And if you're a year 1 student, then you would be signing up for it the following year. So not this year. But if you're year 2 or your marine science, because that's only 1 year class, you'd be taking it this year. Okay. Ms. Clark and all of us teachers are going to be sending out information coming up in just a little while about how to sign up for the exams. And your classes will all go over that information in them as well. But it's important for you to know if you're taking the class second quarter, we're probably sending out that information first quarter, and you may need to sign up first quarter. So don't wait till second quarter to try to figure that out. You're going to want to make that decision first quarter. That would be for you people taking marine science if you're in this call. How are we going to cover everything? We're not. We just aren't. There's just no way. It's especially for IB year 2. IB year 1 had 3 units that we didn't cover last year. So there's a whole chunk of material that we just can't cover. However, IB knows that. IB knows that schools around the world have been affected by this. We're all having to go into these distance learning or hybrid learning experiences, and you just can't cover quite as much in that experience. Plus, most of us had to shut down for a period of time, and so there's material that was just missed. So IB's made some adjustments to their assessments because of that. So they've shortened the exam. There's less content to cover. There used to be 3 parts to the exam. Now there's 2 parts to the exam. And so there's a whole chunk that we don't need to cover. And so that will help. There's no group 4 project. So if you were a year 1 student or a marine science student, there would have been a project you were going to do with the other science students, and that's been taken out. So that's one other thing off your plate. And then just in general, your teacher is going to have to remove material. So we're looking at all of our curriculums and we're saying, okay, what are the main ideas in these topics that need to be covered for the test, but additionally, like what needs to be covered just so that you have a good education in this science course. Not everybody is taking this course because you want to take the IB test. Maybe you're taking this course because you want to go into bio in college, or marine biology, or oceanography, or something like that. Or maybe it's just really interesting to you. We want to make sure that you get the breadth of the course, but we may not get to all the depth that is in every topic. And that's just the way it is this year. But we're going to do our best to cover what you need in order to do well on that exam. So that's kind of the end of my spiel. There's certainly a lot more information we could go over, but in a session that covers multiple classes, it's kind of hard to do that. So we'll definitely cover that kind of material when you get into your classes next week. But I would be happy to answer any sorts of questions that you have about the IB classes to the best of my ability. So if you have questions, please stick them in the chat and we'll start going through that.
So Walter's got one. Any particular supplies you recommend?
Great question. So I do know that there are some supplies that will be given out in a couple weeks. You'll get some information about coming in to pick up. So, you know, things like books and that kind of stuff that you might need for different classes. It's possible your teacher might put some manipulative kind of supplies in there for you. I know for my year 2, I'm going to do that. I don't know if Ms. Lang is planning on doing that for year 1. Other than that, you might find it helpful to have like a spiral or composition book, just so that you can sort of keep track of all the things that we're learning and do some practice in that. One of the things for IB Sciences, there's a lot of information. And so being able to write things over and over and over kind of gets it drilled into your head. So something like that might be helpful, but there's not really anything specific right now that I can think of that you would need. Certainly your class would go over if there's anything that they specifically want you to have.
I'm going to combine, there's a couple questions that kind of talk about the same thing from Roan and Amelia. Roan's asking, what do year 2 IB Bio students need to remember? Amelia's, how is this IB year 2, specifically the IA, going to work?
Okay, so IB year 2, what do you need to remember? Well, for the test, you know, everything, but nobody remembers everything. So we will definitely go back and be reviewing things throughout the year. And it's a whole chunk of time you're going to have to review before the test, as always happens, whether we're in distance learning or not. That's just kind of how it works, because the test is over the 2 years. In terms of the IA, so I have year 2 students first quarter and third quarter, which is kind of handy. The IA is basically due around before the end of third quarter, a little bit before the end of third quarter. So my plan right now is that we are going to start it because it's your own experiment that you kind of set up. Only in this case, it won't be an experiment in the normal sense, but we'll go over that in class. So we'll probably figure out what your topic is and what you want to study this quarter, and then we'll actually perform it and analyze it next quarter. And so that should hopefully spread it out a little bit, because I know you have in some of your classes quite a few IAs that have to go this first quarter. So that's kind of the plan.
James asks, the IB test, do we still have to pay for it? I'm guessing the answer is
yes. So IB tests work the same way they always have. So I think it's like $98 per test. However, if you're getting anywhere between 4 and 12 credits out of that, that's a whole lot cheaper than it is at college. But if you are on free and reduced lunch, the school has an account separate for paying for the test for those students as well. So.
Okay, Mrs. Quarles, we're getting personal. What is your favorite part of the curriculum?
Oh, so I love proteins and enzymes. They're like the most awesome things ever. They run the show. And so that's in the first year stuff. And I'm kind of sad this year, the way the schedule's worked out, I don't have a first year class, so I don't get to teach that. But I know Miss Lang also loves proteins, so you'll get all of that. But in every unit that we do, we talk about the proteins and the enzymes and what they do and all of that stuff. And I also really love body systems, which those of you in year 2, that's what we're doing this first quarter. We're learning about our bodies, which is so awesome. So I'm excited for that.
Sela's asking about labs. Are they, I'm guessing they're not in person.
No, we right now, we do not have in-person lab opportunities. So the lab activities we'll be doing will be, I'm doing my best to find some online kind of interactive things that you can do. There's a few things like there's a, changing heart rate and that kind of stuff that you can obviously do on your own. You can measure your pulse and that kind of stuff. So you can set up your own little experiments for that, but there are some things that we need monitors for that we won't be able to do necessarily in person, unfortunately. So we're doing our best to figure out virtual ways that you can still have some of those lab experiences. For the first year, some of those will be like demos and there might be some little things that you can do, but a lot of it's probably going to be virtual and us filming things and that kind of stuff.
So Sonnet is asking about the IB exams. Are you going to be using IB Bio textbook like in year one, do you think?
I don't believe Ms. Lang is having year one get the textbook. I think she's just going to be giving out some readings rather than doing the whole textbook. Year two students, you will be getting either the text or I'm guessing they're actually just going to give you, there's a digital code with each text and you can go on and get the digital textbook because they're trying to limit the number of people touching things and being able to give them back and that kind of stuff. So chances are you're going to be getting a textbook code. In terms of marine science, if anybody's here from marine science, I don't know anything about the textbook for that. So
Maggie has a specific kind of a forecasting question. She forecasted for NGSS Bio because she wanted to get to IB Physics, but now IB Physics isn't happening. Do you think she's going to be allowed to switch to IB Bio?
Okay, Maggie, let me write down that. Yes, unfortunately, there weren't enough students signed up to make IB Physics a go this year. We're hoping that maybe it can be like an every other year thing. And so you can get enough students combined with every other year. So there's on the school website, there's a place where you can request a schedule change. And so I would go back and request that schedule change. Who's your counselor, Maggie?
I have Miss Mitchell.
Mitchell. Okay. In general, they are not allowing students to switch because, we didn't know we were going to be in this distance learning thing, but your situation's different. You're switching because you didn't know that a class wasn't going to be offered. And so that might be a little bit of a different situation. So I would fill out that schedule request form and I'll follow up with Miss Mitchell about that as well.
I just put in the text in the chat the link directly to the school schedule request form. Sophia asked the question: when we return to school, do you think finals will make the comeback of the century? I mean, kind of like the group project for year one bio. And
I do not have all the answers, but I do know that even before we went to online only, when we were looking at the hybrid model, we were still looking at doing the quarter system, similar to what we're doing now. And because we're doing half a year now for first quarter and half a year for second quarter, I don't know of a way that would change, even if we went back to, or when, Todd, we go back to doing in person. So I don't know the full answer to that, but with the way we've set up the quarters, I don't see exactly how we might come out of that. But second semester might be totally different. So we just don't know.
Okay, Kirsten has a question about notebooks. Do you think, would you accept work in interactive notebooks like of just them sending pictures of it to you versus Google Docs? She likes to do it more neater and organized than on the Google Docs.
I would say that you're going to have to check in with your individual teachers and see how they're setting up their classes. It may be that they are setting up a specific interactive notebook for you to do. And it definitely depends on the type of activity. Not everything's going to be just sort of like writing on Google Slides and that kind of stuff. So some of those activities, it might be totally cool to just, write down your answers and send in a picture. And some of those activities, it might not work as well. So I would say it's hard for me to give a blanket answer for that.
Walker's question, I'll handle this one. The answer is, of course, all of it, all the time. Moving on, Danielle, oh, here's a big burrito of a question. What the heck is expected in IB Bio this year?
Hey, Danielle, what do you mean by what's expected? Like, what are we going to teach? What's going to be covered, or?
Yeah, basically kind of like that. Because I'm doing all IB this year. I was just wondering, like, kind of what's expected of juniors in IB Bio. Like
how much work?
Yeah, that's what I
Okay.
mean. Sorry.
Okay. So I'm going to say this for everybody and for every junior who has jumped into the IB process. It's a jump from sophomore to junior year. It just always is. And it takes a little while to like figure that out because all of the IB classes are basically like college level classes. So there's a workload there that's different. With that being said, this year is a little bit different because we're doing this synchronous, asynchronous, and we're trying to cut down a little bit on the amount of material because it's a whole different way of delivering that material. And so it's really hard for me to say if it's going to be the same like sort of workload as it normally would be, since you're probably going to get less material, but a little more of that is stuff you're going to have to do on your own. So it's hard for me to say how it's going to feel for you as a student. But I will it's nothing like chemistry last year.
Yasmin's asking about marine science.
Yeah.
Is that only a second quarter as far as you know when it's available? Do you think it's going to be available next semester?
So it's a year-long course. The
Ooh.
first semester of it will be second quarter. The second semester of it will be fourth quarter. So you would take it second quarter and fourth quarter. There's only, I think there's just one section of it. So I think it's just second quarter, fourth quarter. And so you'll get a full year. So depending on what class, like my year 2 class, there's only one class. So it's only offered first and third, but like IB Bio year 1, there are 3 classes and some are first quarter and some are second quarter. So if your classes switch somehow next semester, you may not go first and third. You may end up going first and fourth. So those of you that have a class that has multiple sections, you're not guaranteed which second half of the year quarter your class is going to be in.
Chris is wondering how much material are we skipping? And I would prefer for you to answer this in grams. We need to know how much are you skipping? How much are we skipping?
135,000. So in terms of material that we're skipping, the test that's no longer there is test number 3, which covered options. So the material we have a certain number of topics that everybody in the world covers, and then there's a separate group of topics that are 4 options that we choose one of the options to cover. And so you're doing one of 4 different things. And that covered more in-depth stuff on human body. And we are no longer doing the more in-depth stuff on the human body, which will hopefully allow us to fit the whole physiology section into this first quarter. And so we're cutting that out. In terms of other material in each of the units, I'll be sort of looking at what are sort of the big main ideas and cutting down on some of them. Because IB includes some other things that are interesting or connect to something. We just don't have time to cover everything, or at least that I'm not going to be testing you on. And we'll be testing on the main topic stuff. But in terms of like, I can't really say right now how much, because I have no idea how much we're going to get through. So
Juliana's question is, will a suggested schedule be given for independent work, as in a suggested rate to get work done to stay on schedule?
So I would say that for some of that work, definitely, because sometimes we'll give you like a virtual lab to do part of before the next synchronous session so that we can all discuss it, or like a lecture to listen to or look at or whatever, so that we can discuss it the next section. So anything that needs to be done for the next synchronous session, we'll definitely be laying that out as like, here's when that needs to be done, just so that you can take full advantage of the synchronous session and be with what we're all talking about. But there may be some other stuff that has a little more flexible time about when that gets done.
That's all the questions I think we oh, here we go, Kirsten. Are physics, chemistry, and bio not the 3 required science courses for high school anymore? Like if you're missing one of those courses, but just take some other form of science, will you still accomplish getting those 3 years of science?
So physics, chem, and bio are still the 3 required courses. So juniors are all taking either NGSS bio or IB bio first year. So that would be your 3rd year course. So as of now, I think everybody's through juniors, at least, on this schedule of you have physics, you have chemistry. Those 2 classes are the same for everyone. And then junior year, you get to decide, because that's when IB comes into play, whether you want to take the NGSS bio or the IB bio route. But everybody's having biology. And that first year of IB bio covers most of the same material that the NGSS bio covers, only it's just IB specific. So it goes into more detail about a lot of the topics than the NGSS does.
Juliana's question, it's 504s and IEPs still working online?
Yes, yeah, definitely. We'll have to figure out some creative ways to do some of the accommodations and things, as some of those were written for obviously in-person sessions. And we are getting that information this week on how it is that we're doing those accommodations, but all of that is still in play.
James is, the tests that cost money, are those necessary? And James, I'm not sure if you're asking, are they necessary to pass the class, or if you're just talking about to take the IB exam? Is that what you're talking about, James? The cost for the IB exam?
I think so. You don't have to take the IB exams if you take the class. Taking the IB exams is entirely up to you. People will take the IB exams for a couple of reasons. One, they're a full IB diploma student, and so in order to get the diploma, you have to take the exams. Or they want to get college credit, and taking the exams is how you get college credit. Beyond that, it's not a requirement of the course. Now, all of your courses are going to be teaching the material covered on the exam. We're all going to be reviewing for the exam, but you certainly don't have to sign up for the exam.
Other questions, anybody?
Hey, Allison, this is Tracy Park.
Hi.
Hi, kids. Hey, I just saw James's question and your response, and I just want everyone to know that we do have fee waivers for students. So if you're concerned about the cost of the test, and that would be the reason that you didn't want to take a test, please don't make that decision without talking to me when the time comes. We want everyone who wants to be able to take an IB test to do that and not be impacted by the financial part of that.
Good to know. Hey, Danielle just asked the mother of all questions that everybody was wondering, but no one had the guts except for Danielle to ask. Will the meetings be posted on Classroom to be able to watch if you are absent?
Yes, all class meetings are posted in case you are absent. I wouldn't necessarily use that as a reason to be absent, as it's incredibly boring to watch a meeting that you are not involved in. But if you are absent, definitely you want to catch up and see what it is that we talked about and get all that information. So yeah, that will all be, everything's recorded, everything is posted.
Chris is wondering, does the exam, and Chris, I assume you're talking about the IB exam, does that count as part of your regular class grade, or is it just a separate thing on its own?
The IB exam does not count towards your class grade. We don't even get the results of the IB exam until like halfway through the summer. However, the internal assessment, which is the large lab report and independent investigation that you're doing, that you do it the second year. So if you're in second year, that counts towards the class as well as towards IB. So that's definitely a part of the class that everyone in the class does, whether you're taking the exam or not. So internal assessments are part of the class as well as part about IB. The external assessments, the exams in May, are things that we're preparing you for, but there's no way for us to include that in the grade on the test since they get sent away and we don't get to see your results until like July.
So Walker, first of all, thank you for the tip. I just removed 2 pints of blood from his body with my Master Kung Fu. Jerica's asking about where will they be posted in the classroom. Jerica, when you say they will be posted, what you talking about? Awkward silence.
I'm guessing she's talking about the recordings of the meetings.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
This particular meeting is not being, I'm not the one who's in charge of collecting that recording. I think that Mr. Richardson is going to be sending out information about all of these like little intro meetings later. But in terms of your class meetings, all of that, your teacher will be posting that into most likely the classwork tab in your Google Classroom. So that will all be posted on your actual Google Classroom page for that class. If that's your question. If it's not, then please unmute and ask.
Maria asked a question that Ms. Clark already answered, geology and astronomy. After consulting the judges, no, it is not an IB course.
Maria, the geology, astronomy, and environmental science didn't have a separate own session. So you just got to learn about some cool information about IB. So there you go.
Shaylin is asking, if you do early action for college, does the IB credit work for that? How does that work?
I don't know that question. I don't really know anything about early action. Tracy, do you?
I know a little. I can chime in a little bit. If it's so, colleges are going to accept you based on what you present to them, that you're in such and such classes and so on and so forth. So if you apply to a school saying that you're in an IB class, that you're a certificate candidate or a diploma candidate, then you should follow through with that, because the college is admitting you based on what you present. Eventually, when you get your scores and credit, they'll assess that then. If you're going to school early, so if you're planning on like graduating early, and I'm inferring some stuff here, so I'm not really sure, Shaylin, what the situation is, but if you're going to leave Putnam to go off to college early, then you wouldn't be here to finish the course to take the test. So I'm not sure that would be a good setup for you, just a good use of money or a good way to set you up for success with the test. So I feel like maybe if you have questions about early action, maybe we should talk personally, send me an email, because I want to help you through that and give you some actual thoughtful information, as opposed to me kind of trying to think I understand exactly what the question is.
So, Mrs. Clark, another question.
I would also say,
Sorry, go ahead.
I would also say if it is the case of you actually wanting to graduate early, I've definitely had students who've taken, for instance, part of IB Bio and then graduated early just because they knew they were going to take bio again in college, and then that gave them sort of a leg up going into the college biology class. So I wouldn't say that would be a reason not to take an IB course, just maybe not to take an IB test. But again, you should definitely follow up with Ms. Clark about that.
So Ms. Clark, another question about IB diploma kind of things. Lynette is asking, if we're doing the IB diploma, do we take the test to be able to get the IB diploma, and we also get the college credit if we get a passing grade? I, of course, already know the answer to this, but I just want to make sure, Mrs. Clark, that you know the answer, so go ahead.
Of course. So if you're an IB diploma candidate, you're going to take exams in all of your IB classes. That's not negotiable, unfortunately. But it's not until the second year of a 2-year class. So just remember that. Of a lot of you, like bio is a 2-year class. So as Ms. Quarles said earlier, if you're a junior in this meeting, when we're talking about assessments, that doesn't apply to you until next year if you continue into year 2. Do you get college credit if you get a passing grade? And the answer to that is it depends on the college. For the most part, yes, this is a higher level biology course, and every college that I know of teaches biology. So this isn't like it's a weird course that they can't find a connection to. What is considered passing can be different for different schools. All the public universities in Oregon and the colleges in Oregon, if you get a 4 or higher, that's considered passing and you get college credit. If you are looking at private schools or schools outside of Oregon, they're usually looking for a 5 or higher. So again, it depends on the school, but if you have a specific school in mind, send me an email and I'm happy to help you find out what their policy is so you know what your target is.
And Ms. Clark, after consulting the judges, yes, that was the correct answer. And on off topic, Amelia, I'll need you to take your phone to Pena at the end of the day today. Just look for him on the motorcycle somewhere. I think I saw him at Lowe's a couple days ago. Other questions? Buffering. Wow, have we hit the end? Maybe we're there.
Okay, well, if you end up having any other questions, you can certainly just send your teacher an email, or you can always email me or Ms. Clark. And I look forward to seeing many of you next week, and some of you maybe next year if you take IB year 2.